Today we got to talk with Kate CROOK. Kate is a social media manager for Mac Fitness, but she's definitely up to way more than that. Aside from being a powerlifter when she was younger and a triathlete even before that, she initially followed her pursuit of fitness as her passion and quickly realized that traveling and marketing and business was actually something that was more aligned to what she felt empowered to do. This discussion was fantastic. We got into the nitty-gritty of motivation, why you should follow your passion, the lack of use of a university degree or what you might use it for, pivoting, changes, moving from one passion to another. And we got it really deep around Kate's passions, and some of the highlights were some of the short-term and long-term goals that she has in place, including potentially being a CEO of her own international company one day. I think this interview you'll really dig. If you did enjoy it, definitely leave some comments, ratings, follows, and everything in between. But for now, sit back, listen in, and enjoy our interview here with Kate CROOK.
All right.
Kate CROOK, thank you for being on the Mere Mortals podcast. I know we've been talking now for like 10 minutes or so, and you're probably a person who I was going to be like, I've got to do very little prompting in terms of talking to you and getting a lot of information. But
you're not wrong.
I've got a couple of things that I normally would list out on sort of these podcasts, but I'm sure we're just going to get into few and far things. So it could go as little as 40 minutes, but it might even go a bit longer. So that's totally fine. Before we sort of get started, I'm going to delve deep into sort of a bit of background of yours, because I know a little bit, but not a lot. And people who are listening probably don't know a lot of that as well. A mere mortal moment of the week. So in essence, something that just made you a mere mortal in the last week or so that you could share with us.
I think this week for me has been, I'm very much a person who loves to take everything onto her plate at once. I want to give 100% in every aspect, and usually I can juggle it. This week was like 4 assignments due at uni on 1 week, still had a lot of work. And I just had a day where I turned up to train and I was like, I do not feel like training today. I do not have the energy to do so. And in all honesty, just decided to write the entire week off for training, because I was like, to be honest, this week is just one of those weeks where I can't handle everything. And I think that's so rare for me to be able to do, to sit back and be like, no, like I'll just take that bit off my plate so I can fill my plate with more of one type of thing at this week. But definitely something I had to do. Bit of shame, but I'm taking a week off training. But
you strike me as someone who is very sort of like an A individual, right? You've got to be always doing things. Did you feel really bad taking a step back on that front and being like,
I even sit there like, oh, should I go for a walk? Do I kill my activity that way? Or but I think it's important to sometimes sit there and be like, look, this week I have to go full guns blazing on one thing. That was this week, and I think I just realized that there was only 24 hours in 7 days of that, and I just didn't have time to.
Did you end up getting all your other stuff done though?
Oh, I'm still working on it,
right,
but
it's still in progress.
Okay.
No, it's good at least that you took that action to be like, okay, there's some other priority stuff that I've got to take on and go from there.
Yeah, but definitely a mere mortal moment, because if I was more than a mortal, I'd probably do it all still.
I'm sure in your mind you still want to.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like,
you're not wrong.
So I did a bit of research, and as always, it's interesting Googling people's names and just kind of be like, okay, what do we find now? I know that you're the social media manager for Mac Fitness. I've been there for a little while. But you're also doing your bachelor's degree in marketing. So that's
double degree actually. I do both a bachelor in marketing and also a bachelor in digital media. So
sure.
Yeah.
So I'd probably get, someone comes up to you at a dinner party or something, 60 seconds. How would you actually explain what you do?
Oh, it's always a tough question. Yep. So many people ask, like, what's a social media manager do? And I was like, God damn, where do I start? I guess to me, like, I'm definitely working more towards marketing, but social media managing is, I guess, the interesting side of things. It's the fun side of things. So I do that for Mac. A lot of the time I also do it through my own like freelance business, and of course put a lot of effort into my own socials just because I have fun with it. So a lot of that's like content curation, collaborating with like photographers, videographers, making content, working with athletes and influencers, which is so intriguing because you have so many different personalities all at once. obviously through uni, that kind of ties in marketing, digital media, it all comes to play. You can see kind of where the career progression's going there.
Yeah.
And then I guess on the backside, when it's not all business, I'm a powerlifter, go to the gym a fair bit.
Would you call yourself still a powerlifter?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I will go back to competing eventually one day, but I'm not like the stereotypical, I only do 1 rep maxes when I walk into the gym. Like I definitely still do a lot more training. I come from a background of like triathlons and dancing before that, competitive swimming before that. So I'm definitely well-rounded in terms of having a couple of different training styles and still loving it. And by all means, there's definitely days where Les Mills classes are really what I feel like. I think, powerlifting's always been the number one goal, the main focus. And apart from that, just like catching up with friends, traveling, we mentioned before is very, very big passion of mine. Probably the number one passion, would supersede powerlifting any day.
Oh, wow. Well, I was gonna, and not to jump super far ahead, but I was gonna ask you the whole question about, what is something that you're passionate about? And it sounds like traveling is more so than lifting. Why do you reckon that is? I
think traveling just gives you the opportunity for me to be free. Like it's very, like I'm a person who loves, hustling through life in like everyday life. And then traveling is like very liberating. Like you can't do that. For someone who's a control freak like myself, going traveling is like, you have no idea what happens from one day to the next. So it's quite a challenge, but it's like a thrilling one. You get to meet a lot of different people, see a lot of different places, get a lot of different perspectives of things. I just like it. It's like a complete release. You can be any person that you want to be on any day, which is a bit cliche to say, but I think if you have been traveling yourself, you'd probably understand that.
Yeah. No, I want to dig deep into the traveling, because it is something that obviously you can tell you're passionate about. But just to kind of like lay the groundwork on it. So you're not actually a Brisbane-based girl. You weren't born in Brisbane. You used to live more in a rural location.
So I've lived in about 3 different places, but I think for the majority, most people would know me as a Bundaberg girl. So I actually lived on the beach a little bit north of Bundaberg, but grew up in Bundaberg in terms of schooling and stuff like that. So if you don't know it from the rum distillery or the brewed drinks, Bundaberg's about 5 hours north of Brisbane. There's a few beaches there. It's still a town. It's not like a country place. We don't have just farms, but definitely more rural than Brisbane. Yeah.
So did you begin your training, so just talking about powerlifting for a moment, did you begin your powerlifting sort of training there? And so that was a transition from triathlons to doing powerlifting? Yeah,
so I did triathlons in Bundy, pretty much all my sport in Bundy. And then powerlifting, I joined like a powerlifting gym when I was 16. And that's where it all started. I actually had the most incredible crew there. Like there was a number of national record holders, world record holders in that gym. So I was just incredibly gifted to be able to start there. And then obviously be surrounded with the right people from the get-go. And then obviously came to Brisbane. Actually found it really hard to continue to love this sport as much when I didn't have those people around me. But obviously it's just like, it's the way I'd always trained. I had a passion for it. I loved it. So I found my own way and definitely had to change my mindset a lot to still love powerlifting when I was training at like Good Life. But
Why? Okay, so because generally most individuals from the training, especially with gym or otherwise, sometimes the focus is on, the competition from an IFBB perspective or bodybuilding or the look. Has that ever been something that you've aimed at when you're actually training, or has it been predominantly a choice of lifting for the numbers, for the strength?
Well, I think, coming from a triathlon background, I was an absolute twig. And there's a number of if you went onto my Instagram page and scrolled right back, you'd see I looked like Bambi. Like my legs were so thin. So when I started entering the gym, there was no passion to be leaner, because I was already 6% body fat and tiny. And all I wanted to do was be stronger. And I guess, as I mentioned this a little while ago on an Instagram post, but I think for me, being an athlete, I love working on numbers, on physical performance, and being able to, stand on stage and someone just looks at you and says, oh, I don't quite like the way that you look in this department. It's depends on the individual. It's not incredibly objective. And by all means, I have a lot of respect for how much they go through, bodybuilders, and that process. And I'd probably one day approach it just to prove to myself that I could. but that would really be the only reason. Like I don't, a lot of the people that I see on stage, I don't like the look of them. Like I'm like, for someone who's been that lean and saw it as an unhealthy place to be, seeing myself that lean for a competition and being praised on it is just very unhealthy. So I wouldn't go there. Yeah.
So when you first started, because obviously you were surrounded by, world record holders and the like, right? Some people who were at a quite high level. When you look at it back, just to give people a comparison, who did you look up to? Who was the people who for you were like, okay, that's the sort of people I'm kind of aspiring to be?
Oh, like, I mean, if you want to look them up, the people who I trained with were Bella Hamilton. She came third at Worlds and held like some of Australia's first powerlifting records ever.
Yep.
Sean Hausman was my coach and he's pretty high up in the powerlifting scene as well. I coached Odell Manuel, who has like a 1,100 kilogram total. Like I wasn't coming in with like someone telling me a 60 kilogram bench was good. Like everyone around me is there like deadlifting 300 and I'm like, one day. I think Steffi Cohen was one that I just always thought she was such a weapon and a well-rounded weapon, which I thought was really cool. Like obviously she came from doing both bodybuilding, ollie lifting and powerlifting and killed them all, which I thought was super cool. I did watch a fair bit of Max Tuning on YouTube, sorry.
Yeah.
And he was just a skinny person who was super strong. And I was like, maybe that'll be me. Like I definitely looked up to that a little bit. And yeah, I think it was probably more so the people that I trained with than, like famous people, just because they're a bit more relatable. But I was surrounded with people who were incredibly high level from the start.
Well, I was just about to say that's sort of like a combination of, they were family to you, plus they're already really high caliber.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they would be the people you'd be like, yep, this is fantastic.
Yeah. I think it was also just like, obviously, if you spend a little bit of time in the gym, you can have a real appreciation for how like beautiful a good lift is.
Yeah.
So like when you see someone squat and it just looks so flawless and smooth and it just moves so fast, I think that was part of my fascination with lifting was how well someone can move. So when you are like doing deadlifts and it's like it wasn't even as much about the weight, but how good I could make it look.
Yeah.
And again, like I think if anyone sees me train, like it's I'm very pedantic about like I want to make it feel good, look good, move well. I don't really care about how much is on the bar. Well, that comes second anyway to how it feels, how it looks. And I think that's probably, again, something important instilled from the start. Like a lot of people will start lifting and all they care about is numbers and you're like, but it looks terrible.
Yeah, well, I was going to say it's interesting and it obviously shows how much you've been training now. So you say obviously since you were 16, because a lot of people tend to focus when they're very beginning or when they're powerlifting is just move the weight.
Yeah.
But, you can check Kate's lifts and everything, especially through Instagram and whatnot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff where you work on your technique and your speed and your form. And you're right. It's all about moving with the least, like the most efficient way possible, as opposed to just at the absolute maximal you can and the worst thing you can.
I think one thing that, again, we're kind of getting off track here, but one thing that Curtis Staminow, another powerlifter, and I read it like maybe 4 years or so ago when he first said it, but he said that in the sport of powerlifting, the number one thing to keep in mind is not how strong you are at a time, but how long you can continue to get stronger for. So it's that person who's going to get, newbie gains in the first year and can go from lifting 100 to 200 kilograms in the first year versus a person who puts 70 kilograms on their total every year. Obviously, they didn't get as much progression in the first year as that other person did, but because they can continue to do it for 4 years, the end result of how strong they get in their lifetime is a lot greater than someone who goes harder, faster, but only for a short period of time.
Definitely.
So I think that was another thing that really resonated, and it goes back to looking at how you move and how it looks, because obviously good form is going to, overcome a little bit of grip and rip it every day.
No, I can totally agree with that. Look, move a little bit away from the fitness. I think everybody ends up talking about fitness and, we obviously know each other from Mac Fitness and from other places. Now, I feel like everyone would just imagine they're just very one-sided. Yeah. That's what I'm finding when I talk to a lot of fitness people. They always think, it's all about lifting or nutrition and that. But everyone ends up having a lot more depth that sometimes doesn't get sort of covered up. And one of the things I want to talk about to you is marketing. So obviously you're doing your double degree, right? What sort of made you venture down that path?
I guess a little bit of a background. I actually started, obviously, like the obvious choice for me career-wise was to go towards a passion for lifting. And that was probably through school. Like I'm quite a smart person, so I really did have the opportunity to do whatever I wanted to do coming out of school. And my parents, my coaches, my friends, all of them are like, oh, Kate's going to go down the coach or, you know,
something to do with
X-Phys or something like that. Yeah. And I did actually. I went down physio for a little while, and I wasn't really in physio to fix people's bung knees. I was definitely in physio to work out how the body worked and be able to tailor that to, I don't know, find ways of enhancing human performance, especially sports-wise.
Yeah.
And in my second year of studying physio at UQ, dropped out and I was like, this just ain't for me. I don't want to mix the passion that I have for training with my career. And I think there's more to me. I think there's more ways to progress further.
That's a great point. Was that decision quite hard at the time?
Oh, yeah, incredibly hard. But I did actually know sooner to dropping out that I was going to drop out. And I just kind of stayed in for a little while to be like, okay, I'm going to finish on a high note and learn as much as I can out of this subject, which I still definitely see as valuable knowledge, the stuff that I did learn. And then out of coming out, I really didn't know what to do. And I was like, I think I'll just pick something as far apart from physio as I possibly can, and went to marketing. And I definitely talked to a lot of people and was like, hey, what do you think I should do? And a lot of them were like dietetics, I don't know, maybe like dentistry, like it was all health related. And then my dad was just like, Kate, I think you're going to be a CEO one day. And I was like, oh, you've sold me.
I'm going down the path now.
So yeah, that's why I came into marketing uni-wise. And then after starting uni for a little while, ended up being offered the position as social media manager at Mac. Have learned so much more out of actually being in the industry and doing the work than I ever could have out at uni. And I think that's such an invaluable thing to learn, that uni's relatively useless apart from the piece of paper and the connections you get. The experience in the workforce is huge, and I definitely appreciate so much being given that opportunity from obviously the boss at Mac. And yeah, like just, it's been so thrilling to see just how hard, or not how hard, but how in depth marketing is and how much of an impact it really has. And I think from a business perspective, I've definitely realized that marketing probably has the most carryover to being a business owner and having a holistic understanding of everything that goes on in a business, as opposed to, you know, being in advertising or being in economics or something like that. Like it's still a very good career path, but if you want to be an economist, not if you want to be like a CEO who oversees the whole company.
Sure.
So I think that's where marketing came in, but I definitely do have, so much passion for just the social media side in general as well. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you two questions, and they're kind of related, right, from what you touched on before. One is, you know, for people who might be listening are in that spot where they're either doing a university course and they're not really thinking it's either their passion or they're not really motivated by it, or they're scared that, oh, well, I can't drop out because I've spent X amount of money on it, or I've done whatever. Would you have some sort of feedback for them, or some sort of, you know, learnings that you took away from that as to if it was the right decision, or in your mind, what's
I think it could go a number of different ways for a number of different people, depending on, like, obviously every circumstance is different. You could think that your degree isn't really worth it, but it could be that the degree is just poor, the career is not. So I think you probably want to learn a little bit more about the career. Like, for example, my roommate is still in physio, and I don't think she's really into the uni degree at all, but I know that she's going to be absolutely banging physio when she comes out. And I know that she's also got a lot of interest in the neuro side for a PhD. So she needs to have that uni degree there, even though it really sucks at the moment, and she doesn't want to know about musculoskeletal stuff, which is predominantly what the uni course is made of. But she has found a niche that comes out of that degree that does give her a lot more passion that you can go down, which I think is something important for a lot of people to realize. I think if you are in a uni degree, again, if unis are just terrible at making you passionate about it, in my opinion. Like, they just drum into you assignments rather than learning. Like, you can have a passion for learning, but not a passion for studying. And I think you could have a passion for learning about a topic, but not studying it. And it's tough to get through that uni degree. But if you are passionate about learning about that topic, I think it's worth enduring. But if you're that person that's just like, oh, like, my mum and dad told me it was a good choice, and I think I might just go down that career because it's a bit safer. Like, in the end, I guarantee that, like, 10 years down the track, or not even that, maybe 2 years down the track, once you graduate, you'll decide it's not for you, and you'll go back to uni and spend another 4 years worth of money on the same route. So I don't think the money should be a problem, because everyone knows that the HECS debt is the debt you die with. So just don't think about it. I mean, that's probably a controversial decision. Don't judge me on it. But
it's a big call. Yeah, no.
But I think if you know that you're not in it, then why continue down a path that you're only going to, kind of cause yourself a bit more grief and frustration with for another couple of years.
No, definitely.
Only to come back and start again anyway.
And the other question I had around that, so some people, and you touched on it, right, where you learn a lot more when you're doing it, right? When you're taking action, when you're working, as opposed to sometimes just studying or actually trying to pick up, because you've got the pressure that you got to actually deliver something or take some action while you're learning. So you kind of enhance that side. When you joined Mac Fitness, right, you were still obviously going through the degree or even early stage through it, and you're still continuing to go with it. What challenge did you find at the very beginning that you sort of worked through to get to that stage where you went, oh, actually, I'm learning a lot more on the job than if I just stayed sort of studying?
Look, I think when I first started, I was very in a, oh my God, I've been thrown in the deep end 100% kind of mindset. And I think anyone who's been thrown into a job like that realizes that, because you get to this stage where you're like, I feel like uni should have taught me this already, but I've learned nothing about this topic. And I have a fair few friends in 3rd or 4th year marketing who continue to say the same thing, even as like I'm not that far through it than they would be. But if I say like, hey, how much do you know about like SEO and tailoring that to a website or tailoring that to socials? They'd be like, what do you mean? And I'm like, you're a 4th year in business. You're on your honors. Like, what do you mean?
They might be at the stage where like, well, we know what SEO is, but what do you mean we tailor it to a specific channel or something like that? Yeah.
And I think like when you'd go through uni, and especially when I'd get the textbook telling me something and then I'd done it already in Mac and I'd been like, that's wrong. Like, I know that's wrong. Like I've proved concept against that being wrong. And I know that there's a better way to do that, but you'd bring it up and they're like, oh, the textbook says this. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, sorry. Something written 10 years ago is more up to date than what I did yesterday at work in a real life situation. Are you kidding? Like,
well, specifically as well with marketing, right? A lot of the times now it's influenced by technology, and you're talking 10 years, right? 10 years was Facebook was just getting invented. It was just around. Twitter was just beginning. And now we've got things like TikTok sort of taking a lot of actual viewership, and YouTube producing now, or coming soon with some shorts, which is sort of battling TikTok. And there's all these platforms and channels. It's like, if you're learning about that from a 10-year-old textbook or from 10-year Notions,
it's empty.
That's already.
There's not even a TikTok chapter.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't exist.
But I think that is probably, again, like something specific more to the degree. Like science, I'd expect it would need to change very rapidly.
Yep.
Marketing, by all means, like if you look at the algorithm for Instagram and Facebook, they change like weekly. Like there's no way that a course, which would take 6 months to write, and then them sourcing a textbook again has to go through a production and edition process of being made, being written, being published. There's no way that it's going to be up to date at all. Like, you're literally more worthwhile watching a podcast that got released last week than trying to find a textbook that talks about the current algorithm, because it just takes too long to get a turnaround of decent information. And I think that's one thing that annoys me about uni, is they want you to do all these bloody peer-reviewed, case-reviewed studies, and you're like, but it's all old. Like, I don't, it's not helping at all.
It's kind of like, you'll peer review, why something like a popular one is why Kodak went out of business. Something to that relation where, okay, there's aspects of it that make sense, but we are in such a different transition now that it's not even close to why, like, it doesn't even matter. So,
it's like talking about the bloody life of a flip phone, Nokia phone, when we're like, but we now have the Apple, like, iPhone 11. Like, why are we still talking about the flip phone Nokia? Like, that's sort of how I see a lot of university studies and subjects to be. Again, you need it for the piece of paper, and I think the connections that you get out of uni are invaluable, but the knowledge that you get from being in the real world is far beyond, and the connections that you get out of being in the real world are far beyond as well.
No, I think now, so we're talking about marketing and obviously social media and whatnot. I reckon people, they're going to think of you as, okay, well, she obviously has an idea or is almost an expert in that sort of space.
Yeah.
If people had to ask you, if someone's wondering, okay, you're looking at your own personal profile, or, people listening to this might have their own company or whatnot, and kind of thinking, okay, what might be the top 3 ways I could go about in improving the way that you either market yourself or you're marketing your company. And if you think about it more from a mindset perspective, because that might be a little bit more long lasting than just a specific technology or whatnot. What might that be? What would you suggest?
I think this probably a lot of people already know, but for someone who doesn't already know, I think it's very important to share value on socials, not promotions and tacky pictures of what's going on.
Yep.
I mean, tacky pictures of what's going on might suit your business and provide value. But for example, if you were Coles supermarket, I don't think anyone really goes on your social media to look at the price of milk every week. They're more so going on to look at recipes or updates on what's new and what's not new, and what chefs might be, you know, good to look for inspiration, because it's all food related. Like it's much more like they want a community atmosphere than they want a price of something, or they want like to know something about your business that they don't really care about, which I think is a common mistake a lot of people do. Is they just post like, oh, that'll do. Like we've got it, so we may as well post it. It's not really the point. You're supposed to provide value.
To give me a comparison for how Mac Fitness might differentiate itself from others, how would they currently, or how would you guys currently work to provide more value, as opposed to here's a protein price changing every week? Yeah,
I think for Mac, we're just trying to deliver a much more holistic fitness community. So talking about workouts, home workouts, as soon as ISO hits, like you can come to us and we will tell you everything you need to know about how to home work out. Even though we don't obviously have the equipment to give you, we are more than happy to provide all of the advice that you'd need. Be able to promote decent like people in the fitness industry who will give you good advice. So trainers, nutritionists, dietitians, supplement advice about, you know, what you might want and what you might need tailored to your specific person. Obviously what's new and exclusive. So it's kind of like breaking news style stuff. As well as just like fun content, you know, memes and reviews and things people can laugh about. Like I think that's a lot more, I guess, engaging for people than seeing like, oh, that's the protein price. Cool. Again, got it. That's the same as last week. Got it.
I think that sort of value across different, whether it's, you know, Mac Fitness and that supplement range, or it can be, you said, Coles. I think providing value is a great differentiator, as opposed to not just tell me your product. Like you're not just going, here's a product and I'm going to buy it, kind of be engaging with me and providing value in other ways.
And I think that's the second probably point, differentiation. You've mentioned it already and it probably goes without saying, but I think it's something that does need to be reinforced is noticing your point of difference and trying to touch down on that. Like the amount of clients I've worked with and I'm like, hey, like what sets you apart? And they're like, oh, we're good. And I'm like, that's not enough. Like a customer needs to know specifics. Like who are you targeting? How do you help them above who else is in, you know, that demographic in that market and what do you do that's better than them? And you don't have to be cocky about it when you talk about it, obviously, but you need to share what sets you apart and what makes you individual, which I think portraying can be a bit upfronting. It's like, you know, it's like making a resume. You don't want to say you're too good because you sound a bit overconfident.
But you also don't want to
sort of have to, because that's sort of the point. So I think that's one thing.
Here's an interesting one, just to take that second one, because I want people to really understand how they might do it individually as well if it's a company, right? And I might test it here. So second one, right? A point of difference. What would you say is your point of difference, or that you might be trying to do personally as your own personal sort of profile?
Yeah, it's still something I'm trying to sort of nail down myself, but
because it's interesting because it's sometimes it's hard, like, and everyone can go through the iterations and whatnot. So it could be like sort of what right now you might be trialing out, or what's your sort of difference that you're trying to provide to people.
Yeah, I think obviously I'm passionate about a fair few things, and I feel like that in itself is a point of difference, because it's like I'm not just a fitness person. I'm here to give you real life tips on how to meal prep better, how to have more time in your day, how to save money on this and that, how to travel, as well as how to, you know, have a fitness. And I think that is more so around a niche of having life balance and having a fulfilling life, because I think that's something that's very important to me, and I do it in a number of different ways. And it's just holistic advice that people can touch on. So that's probably, I guess, the sort of content that I'm trying to share, which is like a all-rounding just advice. But I think like relatability is probably my point of difference. Like I'm not Lauren Simpson or Rachel Dillon. I'm not trying to tell you that I have 1 million followers and I need to be looked up to. I'm just someone that's like, you could connect with what I'm saying because you could be going through the same thing. There's a lot of people who are, you know, striving for success out there, which is exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm not saying that I'm the person who has all the knowledge, but I'm saying, here's what helps me. maybe it'll help you as well.
Definitely.
So I think that's kind of what I'm trying to share.
Yeah. Look, one of the things I was going to say to that is, you mentioned a Lauren Simpson, and there is platforms and people that look up to those sort of individuals, and totally fine, right? They're at a certain level. They've obviously made something for themselves. But one of the reasons we made, the Mere Mortals podcast and what we're trying to do here is there's a lot of knowledge and learnings that come from individuals who are not there yet, but they're building their way yet. Or they're still just normal individuals that you can really relate to, that you can kind of match up to, like, okay, well, I see that, they're still doing university, or they're still learning this, but actually they went through X, Y, and Z, which particularly either I'm going through right now or I could see myself going through. Because often you'll look up to the full, a Lauren Simpson or Stevie Cohen or someone like that, and you'll go, well, they're amazing, but they're already at the absolute top 1%.
Yeah, you don't get to see the behind the scenes.
Yeah. So it gives us a chance to see behind the scenes of people like yourself who, it's someone that you can see is going places, but it's that sort of behind the scenes on almost that first couple of steps before those big steps. Exactly.
How are you getting there? Yeah.
So that's two things I got there from you: value and point of difference. I've got a third one for us.
Third one for socials. I think, again, quality of content makes a big difference. Consistency of content makes a big difference. And I think they tie in really well together. A lot of people will go full guns blazing for approximately 2 weeks, and then they're like, oh, no, I don't have any content to post.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to sort of work out what you're trying to share, build up a bit of a database of that, and get some people on your side if you're not a pro at that sort of stuff. Like for a lot of businesses that I work with, like, they're not photographers, and I don't expect them to be able to take 10 shots of their members working out every single session that they do. If they're a gym, for example, it's probably better or more efficient to get a photographer in and get them to take 2,000 photos and then bank it, put some graphics over it with someone else's help to communicate that point of difference, and lean on people who are qualified and know a lot more about it than trying to tack it all head on by yourself. And use it as a point of connecting with other people in different industries to sort of build each other up. Because obviously social media, like, there is a lot of industries that relate to that in terms of like graphic design, marketing businesses, photographers, videographers, and it's a very creative platform. So utilizing everyone's creativity together can be a really great way to to boost like how creative your content actually is. And the more creative it is, generally the more entertaining and valuable it is to people too. No,
definitely. I was going to ask you mentioned quality and consistency as well. What would you say to people, so obviously individually and again for a company, quality versus quantity? Which one would you steer towards?
Both. Like, consistency is definitely very important. There's no point in, I think one thing that Mac has definitely taught me, because I definitely expected that you'd go like full guns blazing on this hugely cinematic video, it'd look amazing and it'd get you all the views, but it doesn't.
No.
You'd have to post very often to actually get any traction. So you don't want to be posting something that's really tacky and puts your brand in a bad image. So that's where the quality side of it comes in. You still want to be able to provide value through decent quality content. And there's nothing worse than you posting like selfie cam videos with tacky filters all over it every single day. Like, that's not valuable anymore. So it needs to be high enough quality that it's still valuable, but not at the expense of taking forever to make and then only having a really small amount of content to actually put out there.
No, definitely. And look, one of the things I was going to say was, and we see this in Mac Fitness sometimes with the athletes and the affiliates that we work with, where there's a call to arms in terms of, hey, just send us through a review of doing a supplement and whatnot. And I think a lot of people, I'm not suggesting that they're not doing this because they're not trying to give you content. It's more that I think people get into the mindset of, I've got to make sure this is perfect. I've got the right line. I've got to do this. And if I stuff up a word, I've got to redo this again. And then that's going to be their blockers to giving it to you. Where I think people have to have a minimum quality. So if you're a company or an individual, have your minimum quality. And then once you sort of reach that and it's attainable, then...
Yeah, I guess as an example, like when I send through to athletes like, hey, I want to review video, for example, my key points would always be, A, get some decent natural lighting. I don't want you to go and buy a ring light to go and do it. But please don't take it at 10, 12 p.m. and have yellow lights on in the background. Like, have a decent lighting on your face so it looks like it's better quality. Phone is fine. Like, you don't need to go and buy a full-blown camera to do it. Like, your iPhone takes a really, really good quality thing. Put it on like a tripod so your camera's not like shaking all the time. Obviously, don't take it when there's tons of music in the background. Just be like mindful of having different sound in the background. And one take wonders are probably the best. Like I don't really want anyone to put that much effort into editing, because if you can sit there and chat for 2 minutes, who cares if there's a few ums and ahs in there? Who cares if, you know, you stutter a little bit? That's pretty natural and people expect it. So it's fine to put that onto a video. It's just if you've taken it at 12 p.m, it's in bad lighting. You've rambled on for 12 minutes and gone back on the same point that we didn't even want to hear about. And then there's construction going on in the background and the dog runs past and your roommate's in the camera, like you probably don't want to see that.
Yeah,
so that's kind of where the playoff is. And I guess you can get an understanding of where we draw that line.
No, definitely. And I'll give you an example, right? With Me Immortals, we were pretty raw with the audio that we actually normally export. And we were even testing out a couple of audios where we just did nothing to it and just a little bit of tinkering. And in the end, like with the setup that we've got, it's enough quality to go almost straight out of the bat. And it's very minimal that we do from it, because the more things you put in the way, the more blockers it is for individuals, right? So someone thinking now, I want to begin a podcast, they'll be like, oh, well, I've got to get this right and have these exact settings and I've got to figure out what the biggest thing is just doing it. Like just go and talk about something you're passionate about, document something, post it. Like don't even worry.
And I think the thing is you get better as you go. Like if you look at any YouTuber, like as in like consistent YouTubers, mainly the big ones in America. Australia doesn't have many, but if you scroll back on Christian Guzman, who's just one that I watch a lot, his video quality, like they were literally on the phone whenever he talked as he was going throughout his day when they started. And then obviously as he got to like 1 million or over 1 million followers, he started to hire a videographer, but he still did his own editing the whole way through. He'd add cinematics every now and again. But the first like year or two of making content and building up from nothing to 300,000 followers was just like making content. And that was about it.
100%. Look, people shouldn't compare themselves to the 1% sometimes. And I think things like this or other platforms, right? Just seeing what people are, you know, when they're in the middle level, right? When they're building, you get to see the reality of it.
Yeah,
you know,
we're a construction zone over here.
That's right. You know, we're still working. And sometimes what I hope is, right, 5 years in the future, when people look back at Kate and go, wow, Kate's already, you know, interim CEO for this particular company, or her personal media company is going really well or whatnot. They'll go, actually, you can probably check 5 years beforehand, and that's when she was beginning. And
this will be on the Google search.
Exactly. So with that transition, I want to talk to you about Elevate Media Management.
Yeah.
So that's I checked the website and I was like, oh, this is really cool. I didn't even know this was about it. So just very briefly about it, to talk about it, you know, that's obviously the CEO of Elevate Media Management. Why did you end up beginning that sort of venture?
I think this comes back to the experience side of stuff that I do through uni. So like I said, I always wanted to be top dog, for lack of a better word. Like I want to be running my own thing. I want to be top of the ladder. I'm just that kind of personality type that wants to be there. And obviously I do not think I am the best marketer out there. I'm still very much a work in progress. And I think that's probably an asset to me, knowing that I have my mind open to learning so much. And I'm still obviously learning so much through Mac. But I started my own freelance company because people were already reaching out to me and being like, hey, like we'd love to get you on board and give us a hand. So I was like, I may as well start this up, may as well add it to, I guess, a portfolio, start building that out. And I've learned so much out of just like working for those clients, because as soon as you put your name on it and your own accountability on it, it's just like, oh, now I've got to be better than I ever have been.
Now, then it's real, because it's your name against something, and it's like, okay, this is done by Kate. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to step it up that extra percentage.
There's no one else to blame for this one. It's all on me. So I think that was part of the reason I did it. The other reason was just for connections. Like I do think that who you know is like 80% of where you get in life. Obviously there's still a lot of other factors that play into, you know, how you're perceived within who you know. But I did really want to just get to help out a lot of local businesses in Brisbane, because I know that marketing firms in general are super pricey. Social media work is super pricey.
Unbelievably pricey.
Like even photography and that, like it's so extreme. Like it's like $500 for a 1 hour shoot for some people. And for a business, like I want to be able to communicate to them how important it is to have a decent, I guess, reputation as a brand, which is really what socials can give you. It's where people find you. I'm definitely the person that if I'm going to go out for like brunch in the morning, the first thing I do is search them up on Instagram. Like that's all I ever do. I don't look up your website. I don't go to there and look at your menu. Like I literally look it up on Instagram and see how like foodie your food is.
Oh, definitely.
So I think just communicating to people like the value that socials has, and then giving them a helping hand that is affordable, while all I'm doing is improving my skill set. Like I'm not there for the money. And if anyone asked my rates, they'd be like, oh, she's not there for the money at all.
Yeah.
But I do really see it as a great way to challenge myself to improve my own skill set and find out what I don't know as well. So, you know, pick floor. Oh, like they asked me to do this. I've never done that before. Okay, cool. I'm going to go spend 2 days researching that. So I have the skill set behind me to do it, and then I'll do it for them. It's invaluable experience, and it's invaluable, I guess, like a learning curve for me to be like, okay, well, this is my roadblock. How am I going to overcome that? And then let's overcome that, as opposed to being like, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that's brilliant, right? As you were getting, you can do all the degrees, all the courses that you want. But when you really learn is when, you know, this is a real life example. Someone comes to you and says, I want you to do X, Y, Z. And then you go, okay,
I can do X and Y, but I don't know Z. And you're sitting there and you're like, how do I do Z?
But it's the whole, and I think that's probably the next stage of when it comes to learning and whatnot. You should just be really good at learning as opposed to just learning a particular aspect or niche. I think there's the whole mindset of being a master tradesman of a particular thing. And I think there's still going to be a place for that, but there's going to be such a bigger place for someone who can learn anything that's actually needed at that point, especially with things changing so rapidly.
Even for general understanding and being able to respect and appreciate the people who are around you. Like even if you're not in charge of, even if all you care about is, you know, point A of a specific role or job or whatever it be, project, you still want to be able to look at person B, C, and D and see how your role integrates with their role and what impact you're going to have on them. And without like a basic understanding of that, then you're not going to know anything about yourself, like about how your role is impacting them. So I think it's good to have this foundational knowledge.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Now, Kate, I've got a couple of what I would like to call quick fire questions, but you don't have to give me some quick fire answers. So they can be, again, as lengthy as you want, right? A couple of them. If you could post one thing to social media that everybody in the world would see, what would it be?
Gosh, that's a tough one. I think it would be like something that I'm really passionate about is the importance of being like a happy and positive person. Despite everything else that I'm passionate about, that's probably one thing that I think everyone in the world needs to hear and see. Not that it's not said enough, but there's no harm in someone else saying it. So I would probably post something about the fact that everyone likes people who are happier, better. The fact that being happy, even if you're pretending to be happy, makes you happy inevitably. And also the fact that I think life is really about making memories, making experiences, and making, you know, a happiness that fulfills you, as opposed to running through and having a wife, having kids, getting a job, getting this money, dying. It's more about fulfilling.
And it's interesting how few people out there really know what success looks like to them, or what real, you know, what they really like. So a lot of people go through university because their parents told them to do it. They go and get married and have kids because that's what they're told and or believe that's what they should do. Sometimes it just takes a couple of seconds or minutes to sit down and be like, actually, I don't really want to do this at all. Why am I even doing it? And pivoting quite easily. What does a perfect day look like for you?
Oh, I'd probably be traveling. Like it's just, that's like where my anticipation in life ever goes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, better than that question then. I want to hear two things. One, where was the first place that you traveled that actually made you go, okay, this is why I love traveling or why I really want to travel?
Well, the first time I traveled overseas alone was to Japan when I was 15. So I think the traveling alone and the freedom and the traveling overseas where you can't speak the language and you don't know the country and you don't know the landscape and there's no one but you to account for you getting through it was probably what made me fall in love with traveling. So it wasn't really the place, but the experience more so. But in saying that, Japan is a phenomenal country. So there's nothing against that. Probably like sitting in the middle of like Harajuku and like there's people bloody everywhere and you're just like so different to Australia.
What are we in right now? In May, I was supposed to be in Japan 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
so
I heard that. Felt for you.
I know, it's a little bit sad, but oh well, it's fine. Okay, and what was the greatest place you visited then?
There's definitely been a fair few. My favourite city so far would probably be Amsterdam, and not for like the
normal thing,
the
that
normal
people
reasons.
imagine it. Yep.
Like I just really, really loved the culture there and the place and how beautiful it was. My favorite experience traveling, there was like it's a little town, but it's actually the tallest mountain in Germany. There's a video on my Instagram page. You have to scroll back like a year and a half now, but it was just such a beautiful spot. Like I just went to the top of this mountain on the ski lift. Like you go all the way to the top on the ski lift and just like looked down on this snow-capped like everywhere.
Mountain ranges.
And it was just so peaceful, so quiet. Everyone around me was locals. Like I was in amongst like authentic culture. And then when I went out for dinner that night, like they had like traditional folk music playing, and there was just like huge beers. I don't know. It was just so surreal in terms of not being a tourist anymore. Like I felt like I was immersed.
And it's interesting you say that, because that's one thing that I personally enjoy as well, going somewhere and not feeling like you're a tourist, feeling like you're immersed. But just the way you were kind of explaining it then, right? It kind of gives you that feeling, you say traveling for you was a passion. I think it sort of seemed like you strive for being able to get to that point where you're almost immersed in that location where you just forget a little bit of your normal day-to-day life and you're
there's no Aussie Kate when I travel. She's gone.
That's really awesome. I want to hear two things. What is one short-term and long-term goal you have in place?
Short-term goal, again, all relative. How short is short?
Let's go sub 1 year.
Okay. Well, I would love to say that I'd get overseas again for an extended period of time. Ideally, that would have been like a 6-month trip start of next year, whether that would be through a uni exchange plus a little bit of extra traveling, or whether that would have just been like me packing up and heading over there.
Yep.
I would have loved to integrate that with Elevate Media Management and just run 4 businesses over there. I think I would have made it work. I was pretty confident, but obviously COVID sort of ruined that.
Yeah.
So I think right now it would be literally just like hammering through skill set in that marketing field. It's probably my number one passion at the moment. Obviously still training a lot, and I did have some goals to chase after, a few records, powerlifting wise in the next 12 months. So provided gyms open back up and my strength levels and I'm still enjoying the sport, I will definitely chase after them. But I think just trying to, build out as many skills, as many pieces of understanding and as much like competency in roles and industries as well as I can in marketing would probably be the short term. Long-term goal, I would love, like my end goal with marketing is to be the CEO of a marketing firm internationally.
That you build yourself?
Yeah, I build myself, and I would rather it be contract only. Again, I've just done so much digging on like what I wanted to do, because I want to continue to work. Like I've always been the person that's worked 2 jobs. I've never really enjoyed, or only for very short periods have ever worked a full-time job, because I love being casual in a couple of different things and having my mind and my efforts spent across the board in a number of different roles. So I think that's what contract work does for you. It's all very short. You're working in a number of different businesses, industries, but I would hate to be the person who's signed on a contract to one company for like 5 years. I could rather just be like, cool, we come on for one campaign, we kill that campaign with you, we move on. Yeah,
unless obviously there's further work that you want to do as part of something else, and then that's obviously the discussion.
Yeah, so I think that'd be the business. I would probably like to base it out of like the UK and move overseas, because I just think that it's a lot easier to conduct an international business, especially service-based from not rurally in Australia. We're just so far away from everything. So that would probably be the long-term goal that way. And I think for me, just exploring the world and as much as I can possibly see of it would be my ambition for the moment.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, look, I sincerely hope I look back to something like this in, 10 years or something like that, and I go, there you go. That's where Kate was beginning. She could actually, laid out that particular goal of yours and go, okay, she's well on her way to there. One last thing I've got in here, I actually got 2. Anyone you could sit with in history. So it could be alive or dead, that you could have a one-on-one discussion just over a day or so. Who would it be?
I've always been interested in like talking to either like Gandhi or Buddha, just because I think they're like you hear a lot of like pass down of like their like morals and what they teach and their perspectives. but I would love to hear it straight from them, like the original traditional way of hearing like their perspective on life and hearing their passion come out of it. I think that would be really cool, just in terms of like mindfulness and having a life of happiness and fulfillment and success and building that for yourself. Like I really am intrigued by that side of thing. It's not something I've ever really delved into, because I do find that when you connect with someone like that, they push it a little bit too hard on you.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't think that the people who originally started it would do that. So I'd just be interested to see how it goes.
Very interesting. And who is the most successful person that you know?
I've never really thought of this, and I do really live in my own world. Like I'm just such an uncultured person, but yeah, I don't know.
Or who to you is a successful person?
There would be so many. Like I have so many friends that have built out their own. I guess for me, what successful would look like is someone who's very fulfilled with where they're at, and someone who's built it themselves rather than fallen into that position. But I couldn't put a name to it.
No,
sorry.
That's all right. It's okay. It's always interesting to find the answers to this particular one, because some people go really local to them. Some people can go broad.
Yeah.
There's no real right answer.
I know some people do count on family for that one, and by all means I do like my family, but I think I'm probably one of the higher achievers out there. So
it's interesting. Sometimes, and it can change as well, right? To me, interestingly, one of the people that I find really successful is the first female billionaire who, from her own company, which is the owner of Spanx, and she was the first essentially billionaire from her own creations. And knowing her story is just like amazing, right? So, but that can change. You can be motivated or driven by different individuals. So,
for sure.
If there's one message you want to leave people with, people who are listening, or you wanted to share, is there anything you'd want to leave people with?
We've touched on so many topics that I don't know which one to nail down on now, but
there are a few things that,
gosh, I would probably just say, finding your passion is definitely something that's probably harder done than said. It's very hard to find like where your heart really lies. But that like action of going and doing that soul searching to find out what truly makes your heart happy, and not just what makes you content or what makes your parents happy or what makes you feel like you're successful, but what makes you like truly fulfilled doing it, is like one of the most important things you can ever do for yourself. And it might be a step back initially to go and do that soul searching, but I think it's putting your trajectory in a position where you can just go infinite in that direction.
Well, and it just kind of makes me think all the way back to the beginning of this, right? Like we were talking about training, but it kind of translates to life. People can go really hard in in a year or 2 years thinking that it's what they want to do. But sometimes you kind of have to be a little bit more gradual and a bit more long-term and go, well, no, what do I actually want to do? And then you're able to continue and do that for 20 odd years, 30 odd years. Kate, this has been a lovely discussion. Where can people find you if they want to know more?
I'm pretty accessible on pretty much every platform. Instagram is probably the easiest to find for most people because it's a single handle. So at Kate CROOK _ so KATECROOK _. If you're not an Instagram user, I am on LinkedIn. You might be able to drop that one in the bio below. Yeah,
I'll probably put all of your normal details for Instagram, LinkedIn. Would you want me to post as well the Elevate?
Of course. If anyone wants to reach out via that, you're more than welcome. Definitely. But it's still a work in progress, as we've talked about. But definitely, if anyone's interested regarding marketing stuff, it's definitely just a marketing platform. So
brilliant. Kate, thank you very much for chatting with us.
No worries at all. Thank you for having me on.